you say, my purples? You ready for this? Yeah. Got it going all around. What you think about that? It's your purple on the track. What you think about that? It's your purple on the track. Yeah. Mom took a flight to Japan. Tokyo. Run up in your business, better see Mario. That's Mario. And no song got the tech on lock, the bass and Sonicware. Been pushing these pads since the age of 13, so you know I don't care if you think you fresh. If I catch a bullet, then I catch it in my bulletproof vest. Probably from a Nerf gun, but it don't matter nonetheless. Got bean, I'm putting this SmplTrek to the test.
Yes, that was all sequenced and recorded on the SmplTrek, with a little bit of post-mixing in Ableton Live. Let's review it. But not without listening to this demo banger. Let's have a look-see at the box here and unbox this little beauty. As you can see, the box art itself is a big step up from Sonicware's previous products, which just came in a cardboard box with a black stencil of the product. So this is quite amazing. I'm going to give a big one bonus point for that. I also want to take this moment to give a big one thank you to Dr. Yu, Endo, and Takahiro Sato for keeping me in the loop about this. I did get this product for free, but it is not paid, so be sure I will be honest about this. Let's open her up. Included, we have several different adapters for the power adapter, so you can use it in your país, which is very nice. But of course, if you're like me, you're probably most interested in the portability of the thing. Looks like it comes with a standard Atlantis adapter or something like that by default, but you can just clip on the one that works in your country. Let's have a look at the unit itself. We are looking forward to this indeed. Hey, looky here. Comes with a warranty and a little thank you slip and some kind of loop cloud deal. On the back of it, a very gorgeous thank you message with a Godfather font on it. Feels rather nice in the hands. Putting it next to the Game Boy for a size comparison, we can see a slight inspiration there from the layout of the buttons. The hard buttons are a little clicky, and then we have these rubbery buttons that reminisce of the other Sonicware products if you have used them before. Very mushy. And then we have these arrow buttons on the side that are similar to the ones beneath the screen. D-pad and A and B buttons, or clear and OK, they've had the same feel. And these little knobs here, they are a little bit small, and if you use it a lot, I can see myself getting a little bit sore in my fingers from them. Probably going to look for a solution to put something on top of them to get bigger knobs. Pads feel a little bit sturdy and stiff, but that can be deceiving. We'll have to know until we actually trigger some sounds with them to know what they actually feel like. Some of these knobs are smoother. They don't have that jagged click. Let's flip her over on the belly. Here's something I really like about the SmplTrek. You can actually mount this to a microphone stand or anything that takes this type of screw. Let's open the battery compartment. It takes 6 AA batteries, which is a little bit backwards. I'd rather be able to charge it, and I have enough devices that run on AA batteries, but it is what it is. So 4 hours is what you're going to get out of that. SD card and a USB micro port, which again, I'd like to see a USB-C on that, but I'm guessing it's for economical purposes. Headphone jack in the front, balanced line inputs and outputs, MIDI in and out, 12 volt DC input. I really like the weight of this. It feels just right. No more, no less than a heavily packed burrito. Let's see how this thing works. Apart from using it in the Game Boy configuration in the bathroom and things like that, I had this set up on my desk with a small little mini stand like this, which I find quite charming. Convenience ability is great. Get an adapter like this, hook it onto a mic stand, hang it over your keyboard. You got a prosthetic leg, you could probably screw it on there. You know what I'm saying? You can store 128 projects at any time. This right here is the project view. You have access to 10 different tracks of different track types. We're going to have a look at all of them in this video, and 3 so-called global tracks. But this is your main view, your project view. Switch the tempo from here. Arrange your project by chaining these different scenes together. Clicking this value knob, you can adjust the balance between the external input that you monitor and the internal signal. From here, you can also access the settings of each scene and each track. If you want to edit the settings for scene 1, for example, hold function and press 1. Here you got access to the time signature, how many bars, and how many times the scene should repeat before moving on to the next one. You can also copy all of the tracks in a scene to another one on page 2 in here. Are you sure? Yes. Now we got 3 scenes. Any of these clips obey the length of the scene or the longest clip in the scene. Meaning if our scene is 4 bars long and we have a clip that's only 1 bar long, it's going to loop 4 times over. If you're used to the Machine or Ableton Live, you're familiar with this concept probably. One little drawback is that I didn't find any way of looping a scene over and over. All the track types work like that except for the global track types. They are linear. That means they're always going to play from the top or whatever position the scene is in. It works nicely most of the time, except if you have a long scene and you want to just play from the middle. A little tricky, but to edit one of the tracks, just press the pencil on one of the clips. Press it again to access this menu. And if we wanted to change the length of it, we can change the length in beats here. So 64 beats is 4 bars on this clip. We also got a launch mode here, similar to Ableton Live as well. If you have it activated, pressing one of the tracks is going to trigger just that one clip. But what happens if the launch mode is off? Let me tell you about that. Let's turn it off. Now it's just a quick select for the tracks. Pressing the pads will select the corresponding track. Opening the leftmost column will enter your track settings. And pressing function and the corresponding pad is a shortcut for doing the same thing. We also got us a very handy mixer in here. You can select the tracks with the D-pad or the corresponding pad. Here we have access to the level for each track, the send level to our one selected send effect. We got an EQ and a quick way of soloing and muting tracks just by pressing, again, corresponding pad. Very quickly navigated. Also a good time to mention that we have one channel for the USB audio and one for the external source in here too. Pressing parameter value is going to show us some more parameters. The pads on here, although they might plant some doubt at first glance, actually feel pretty darn nice. They are very responsive and you can set up different velocity curves for them, whether you want them to play at a fixed velocity, whether you want a soft, hard, or linear curve. The size is just bordering on being too small. You can just gently sweep your finger across like that and it will trigger them. So if you by accident are a little bit off to the side, you might end up triggering the wrong way. It takes a little practice, that's all. I only have a few small gripes with these drum kits, and for one, you can only have one drum kit loaded up in your project at the same time. So you have your 10 tracks here, and I have one track activated as a drum track. If I wanted to add another one, it's going to tell me that the total of drum track is 1. So for people that are dreaming of a MPC or machine workflow or something like that, you might find yourself just a tad bit disappointed, but don't lock yourself in that mind state. After all, it's the same thing whether you're going from an MPC to a machine or a machine to an MPC or an MPC to an OP1. You kind of need to let go of your expectations and work with the SmplTrek as it is intended to be worked with. That being said, there are a few improvements that could be made. Let's have a look at how these kits are being handled. We are here at a clean slate. The first thing we want to do to load up a kit track is mark one of these empty tracks, press OK, and select drum. Now track 1 is rigged and ready to have a drum kit loaded up to it. Holding function and pressing this pool button right here, you can select the file type kit, and now we have the option to browse all the presets in here that come with it, with the STK file format, which stands for SmplTrek Kit, I would presume. Or in the pool, you can check out the kits that you made yourself. In my case, I have this Game Man based kit, and I can load that up by pressing it and hitting load. Are you sure? Yes, done. Okay, so one little minor gripe I have is that I would like to be able to play these tracks when I'm out in the project view, but you actually have to go into them one by one. To be able to play this drum track here, we have to press the little pencil, and now we can play and sequence it. Sequencing, very simple, just hit rec, have it running. And here's another minor thing. I would like a quicker way to get to the metronome, but holding function and system, we can go down to metronome, turn the volume up to something like 2, and then go back into the track. Right now we have a 16-step pattern recorded into the sequencer right about around there. You can also notice that the step sequencer fills these tracks in. This is another essential drawback for me personally, that it is always locked to a 16th grid. Let's add a snare too. And turn off the metronome. Now that we have a steady rhythm. We can select each one of these sounds and open this little menu here. Use the D-pad or the value knob to select these different steps and access different parameters such as velocity, timing, micro timing, level, and pan and send for each one of these steps. And you can do some simple automation and things like that. So you can actually go to micro timing and shift these MIDI events, but you have to do it one by one, which makes it rather cumbersome. So there's no global swing and there's no way of recording without the quantize. I would rather just prefer that you can record unquantized and choose whether you want to quantize it or not. Another thing here that would enhance the workflow a lot is if we have a 1-bar pattern like this, if there was a way to just double this pattern. So we can get a simple pattern going and then double it up so we don't have to do it over and over. You can extend the length of this by going to the settings and set the length to 34 steps instead. That would give us 2 bars. Then we have to program the rest of these hits. So you can see this is a minor workflow drawback right there that could easily be improved a lot. There's no immediate way of editing these kits. You have to actually open them up, do your edits, and save it back down and then load it up again. The way you do it is press function, go into your pool, select the kit, and instead of just loading this up straight away, with load here, you can edit the kit. Go into instrument parameters. You have access to the level and pan of each individual pad right here. You can load up the sample from in here. You can put some samples on the SD card. For example, going into the Game Man kit and pressing the left D-pad, you'll access the preview. And you can load your sounds up that way. On the second page, we have access to other things such as the send setting for each individual pad, the pitch of each pad, the slope, which is the envelope. You can reverse it, and on the third page, you can also set choke groups. So right now, these are all set to choke group 1. They will choke each other. You can have as many as 6 different choke groups. So what is the process like of sampling something, chopping it up, and getting it into a kit as of now? Let's have a look at that. So this is the workflow right about around now. Plug something to the line input. You can record something from a microphone also, of course. Hold shift, press recording source. Let's pick our line input and make sure we get some sound. All right, we got that set up. We can go back into the main menu, hold function and press sampling. I'm just going to sample these 3 chords from my Ju 06A. Stop. All right. Save that. And we can choose to save it to the pool or the current project. Pool is a folder that's accessible from all projects. And current project is only accessible from this project. Let's save it to the current project for now. Name it. Okay. Now we get the option to load it straight to a track, and that's going to load it up as a one-shot or a loop, but we can also chop it up. So here we got our auto slice, but we also have a manual chop similar to motor and sampler. So if we chop it up manually like that, you can see we just chop it as we go along by pressing the pads, which is very smooth. And go to auto slice instead, and you can set the sensitivity of the auto slice with your value knob right about around here, and then press OK. And it did a pretty good job. But the next step here is a little bit annoying if you want to get it into a kit, because if you choose store to this project or store to new project, we're going to get 3 different one-shot tracks loaded up automatically and not a kit. If we choose create split files, which is what we're going to need to do, it will be saved to the pool. So what we need to do now is make a new drum kit track, load up a kit, and instead of selecting a preset kit, we need to press new here, and we need to go into instrument parameters. We need to select a file. We need to go to the pool. We need to find our sample. Granted, we remember what it was called, and we saved it to the project, so it's not even accessible from the pool here. So we would need to put the SD card in the computer, move the files, and then assign all of them individually. It would be much smoother if there's a way to just automatically convert it to a kit instantly. And I have spoken to Sonicware about this. They already know about this idea, and they are looking to implement that. So it has some growing pains, but very promising potential. Let's look at the instrument tracks. Very similar procedure here. If you want to prepare one of these tracks to be instrument track, pick an empty one, press OK, and select instrument instead. And now we can go into our sampling mode. Sample one note. Stop, and now let's edit that. Save it to pool this time. It's not immediately loaded up. Workflow could be a little bit improved in there. Taking some inspo from, for example, the OP1, where you just open up the instrument sampler and hold down the key and it's instantly there. Go to the settings of your instrument track either by selecting it with the D-pad and pressing OK, or holding function and pressing your track number 2. And here we can select our sample. So now we need to go to the pool. We need to find our sample, press it. We can use A and B instantly to set our start and end point. And if we press the loop button here, we have our loop turned on. We can press the value knob and set our loop points. We have a decent loop. We can press OK. If you want to access that again, you can go into position setting on the track settings. And you can also set up the envelope for simple attack and release. Now it's ready to sequence, so we can go press the pencil and go into here. Same thing applies. It is stuck to a 16-step grid. You can record in real time or use the step sequencer to input your notes. Or you can use the D-pad and paint the notes out. You have to be in recording mode to do it. Holding down OK, you can draw the notes like this on the piano roll. Let us have a look-see at sampling something from the phone. For this, you need a USB-C to USB micro cable or a Thunderbolt adapter if you're on iPhone. Let's change our input settings. Just pick the USB source right there. See that it works. Note here, I had to try 2 different cables. I have no idea why the first one didn't work. Let's sample this. I'm just going to name this something and save it to the pool. And then we'll take this opportunity to introduce to you the loop mode. Unfortunately, my beta firmware doesn't have the real-time looping, so I'm going to show that in a different video. Now we're just going to prepare a loop track, go into our pool, Select sample, go into the pool, find the sample, and let me showing you how to trim and prepare a loop. First of all, click in the value knob. We have a few different options to how we want to define this loop. I'm going to go with AB point because first of all, I want to trim it to a perfect 4 bars. And unless I'm sure of the BPM, might as well do it the old manual way. And here I think they did a pretty good job. One little modern detail here is that it will preview the end of the sample when you're editing the B point. One thing I don't really understand is why you don't get to the screen immediately after sampling. But now that we saved it, we have a copy of it and we can load that one up into our loop track. But not without telling it first how many bars we're dealing with here. You can actually do your trimming from here if you loaded up a sample from the SD card, for example. This is essentially the same screen as before. But we're going to set it to 4 bars and now we get the option to time stretch it. Melodically or rhythmically or no. Let us go with melodic. And here we need to set it to 4 bars again. Note that the time stretch is not real time, so it's going to need to process it, which takes a while. And if you were to change the tempo, it won't follow along with it. After jumping through these hoops, we finally have a loaded loop at our disposal and it's playing back just fine. A few steps to go through, but it's alright. The real-time looping is damn near perfect. I wish I could show it. Let me show you the one-shot tracks. Prepare a shot track and get ready to loading up a sample in here. I'm going to load something I sampled from one of my videos. Pick the shot track. Do any pre-trimming if you think that is necessary. I already did. And the shot track is literally just triggering one sample. No parameters, no pitching, no nothing. Just trigger that one sample, that one shot. You can't sequence it, so let's set the length to 4 bars. And then go ahead and record something with it. Let us go to the mixer and add some more send to this track so we get some more reverb. One thing that's unique about the shot track, it won't play back in your sequence unless you go into its settings and set sequence to on. Otherwise, you need to trigger it yourself. All right, final type of track, the MIDI track. We got normal MIDI in and out. We got USB MIDI in and out. Prepare the track and set the track type to MIDI. In the track settings, we have some CC set up. In the system settings is where you'd set everything else up about the MIDI. But let me show you what you can do. You can lock the keyboard to different scales and keys, which is very handy in one way. But there is one major drawback here that I have to critique. We're not making use of this real estate. See, the notes that are not part of the scale and key, they're just being locked out. It would be much better if we just compressed this and made every pad playable for a much more range in your playing microphone.
You can hear that the built-in microphone is not a perfect thing, but if we get a little bit closer, it does sound better. Also, of course, it depends totally on your environment, but it is picking up some ground noise, presumably from the unit itself. Luckily, there's a couple of things we can do to clean that up. We can go into the mixer, and right now, just for monitoring's sake, go over to the external source channel, and we have a per channel EQ right about around here. So we can select one that is suitable, for example, a high pass filter. We're getting rid of a lot of that nasty ground noise. Set the frequency to something appropriate, and then if you click it again, this amount right here is actually not amount. It just seems like it's resonance that's called amount for some reason. Another thing you can do, you could actually assign the insert effect to your input. So if you hold function and press the mixer to get to the effects menu and to go into insert, we can set our target to input right there. Make sure the effect is on, and then select whichever effect you would like. We got a chorus on here, flanger, phaser, delay, analog delay, vibrato, auto wah, tremolo, ring mod, crusher, auto pan, isolator, tilt EQ, stomp compressor, rack compressor, clean amp. So let's go with this rack compressor right here and proceed to the next page.
just get our settings set up here with the A, B, C, D buttons. I want the ratio to be, I want it to be a little bit smoother. This rec position knob right here determines whether you're gonna be sampling it pre or post effects. So if we set this to post effects, we will have this compressor applied as we record. And you can only have one insert effect at a time. So I think compressor is one good thing to have on there from the beginning. Then you can add some more artistic effects once you have your sound recorded. Let me show you all the send effects we have on here. We have a send delay with a few parameters right there. It is what it is. Simple enough. It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. We have a ping pong delay. Reverse delay, which is kind of creepy and a little bit. This can fuck with your mind. You know what I'm saying? When you listen to this and not quite make out the words. Tape echo. A room reverb. Plate reverb. Hall reverb. Arena. Tunnel. Infinity. And a sidechain compressor. Let me show you the global tracks, which I think is one of the coolest things about the SmplTrek. You have essentially your private little DAW here. So go into one of these global tracks down here and pressing OK. You can enable that global track. I am sure yes. It takes a little bit to load up this. I presume it's creating some sort of a file there in the background. And then if you press OK or this pencil here again, you'll jump into a virtual 3-track recorder. So we have 3 global tracks. All of them have 3 virtual tracks. You can't actually stack these 3 virtual tracks on top of each other, but you can splice them. So you can have 3 different takes, record across the whole song, and then splice and get the best takes that you want out of those. Then you can use the other 2 global tracks to layer, do harmonies, ad-libs, whatever you want. So it's a great sketching tool on the run. This is one of the things that I love most about it. So yeah, now we have a little bit of reverb. We can get cozy with it and go back to our global track. Hit the pencil again. I see it's running. We can have our backing track there, and whenever we feel ready, we can hop in and record. Yeah. What you think about that? Is your purple on the track? What you think about that? It's your purple on the track, yeah. So now we have that recorded, and you can see the compressor kicked in too because we have that set up.
I'll take a flight to Japan, Tokyo, running up in your business, finna see Mario.
And check the splicing out. We have 3 virtual tracks right here. I'm gonna zoom in and we're gonna chop this into different pieces. Doing so is very simple. A tip is to set the quantization in your settings to just 1/4. That way you don't have to play it from the top every time you want to preview it. But then you just twist the value knob and press it down whenever you want to cut it. Then we could just go through them with the D-pad and select the take that we want for that specific cut.
I'm gonna take a flight to Japan, Tokyo, running up in your business, finna see Mario.
Lastly, let us have a look at the master effects. You can have one master effect on at the time. I'm not a huge fan of them, to be honest. One of them is vinyl. Then we got cassette. Honestly, none of them really sound like vinyl and cassette. But you can do some lo-fi stuff with them. Next up, multi-band compressor. This one is pretty good. EQ and limiter, also pretty useful. Finally, a maximizer. SmplTrek gets 7 out of 10 amazing. A cute, very portable little groove box that unfortunately falls short on a few fixable things. Major workflow frictions for me being tied to the 16th note grid, not being able to quickly create new kits and lay them out across the pads for the sampling beatmaker side of me. Some processes having seemingly unnecessary many steps to achieve your mission, including setting up a fixed length for them beforehand to be able to record loops on the fly, hopping between tracks. This takes a little bit away from the immediacy and the charm of improvising when you're using it as a looper. If they fix all of these things, it would be a serious competitor to even the looper pedals out there like the RC505, a serious competitor to the 404 Mark II. It would win in the way that you sequence things. You have more flexibility in the sequencing on the SmplTrek than the SP404, except if it wasn't for being locked to the 16th note grid and only being able to have one drum kit. SP404 has better effects and it feels a little bit more immediate, like you have the samples at your fingertips. These things could be fixed on the SmplTrek and it would be an even more serious competitor to this. And again, the 16th note grid thing. You're not going to be locked to that on this one. Another serious winning point, the portability. This is probably like half the weight. And look at the size. It would even compete with the OP1 if the sampling and the editing of the samples were a little bit more immediate. Like for example, you could do it straight from within whichever track type you've chosen for a track. When it comes to tracking vocals, like a sort of like a Porter recorder, really this thing is unmatched. The 3 global tracks with the virtual tracks makes it such a joy to work with when you're on the go. The only big drawback in that aspect is the limitation when it comes to the effects. One insert effect simultaneously, one send effect simultaneously. The insert effect can only be applied to one track. The send effect can be used by all of the tracks, but it's still just one send effect. And then there's one master effect that's decent. I don't know how much that is a hardware limitation, but I do have big faith that Sonicware will step up and fix some of these minor quirks because I've seen them do it in the past, and I know that this beta version that I've been running on it is not the last thing we will see from the SmplTrek. If you feel like you could deal with those drawbacks for whatever your purpose is for using a machine like this, I say big recommend. 7 out of 10 amazing. Okay, bye-bye.